New York City, the dream destination. But just behind the velvet ropes and flashing lights, people sleep in tents, battle unseen demons in alleyways, and beg for survival beneath billion-dollar billboards. You've seen the skyline, now meet the shadows. This isn't fiction, it's happening right now. And if you think it's rare, you're already part of the problem. Welcome to Globe Path Travel Documentary, where we don't just explore cities, we uncover their hidden truths. Today, we take you deep into the heart of New York City. Not the skyline you've seen in movies, not the luxury you scroll past on Instagram, but the side most people ignore. Just steps away from billion-dollar condos, people sleep wrapped in plastic, tucked beside steam vents, building shelters from trash bags and broken furniture. They survive in silence, while the city celebrates above them. This isn't a story about travel. It's a confrontation with reality. And if you think this doesn't affect you, watch closely. Before we begin, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Globe Path, and hit the bell icon so you never miss the truth behind the glamour. Leave a comment below, tell us what shocked you most, and whatever you do, don't skip this video. What you're about to see deserves your full attention. How people sleep on footpaths, tense subway stations. When night falls in New York City, the contrast between luxury and survival becomes painfully clear. While some retreat to high-rise apartments and hotel suites, thousands of unhoused individuals prepare for another night exposed to the elements. In 2025, the number of people sleeping outside the shelter system has surged, with many relying on improvised methods to endure the cold, noise, and danger of the streets. Cardboard is one of the most common tools for survival. It's used as insulation, bedding, and even structural support for makeshift shelters. People layer flattened boxes beneath them to block the chill of the concrete, often wrapping themselves in blankets, plastic sheets, or garbage bags to retain body heat. These materials offer minimal protection, but they're often the only option available. Tent encampments have become more visible across the city, especially under bridges, in parks, and near industrial zones. These clusters of tents, sometimes built from tarps, scrap wood, and discarded furniture, form temporary communities. But they're constantly under threat. City sanitation crews and law enforcement conduct regular sweeps, dismantling these shelters and discarding personal belongings. For many, this means starting over. Again and again, subway stations and train cars serve as overnight refuges for those seeking warmth and relative safety. Some individuals ride trains from one end of the city to the other, staying in motion to avoid being asked to leave. Others find corners in stations where they can rest undisturbed for a few hours. But this strategy comes with risks. Harassment, theft, and exhaustion are constant companions. Privacy is non-existent. Safety is never guaranteed. People sleep with their shoes on, clutching their bags, and positioning themselves near light sources to deter threats. The PSM, psychological toll is immense. Every sound becomes a potential danger. Every passerby could be a threat or a lifeline. This nightly ritual isn't hidden. It unfolds on sidewalks outside luxury stores, beneath scaffolding in busy districts, and inside transit systems used by millions. Yet most New Yorkers walk past it daily, conditioned to look away. The city that never sleeps is also the city where thousands lie awake, vulnerable and invisible, hoping to survive until morning. Root causes of homelessness in NYC, New York City, often portrayed as the pinnacle of success and luxury, hides a disturbing truth behind its shimmering skyline. In 2025, homelessness in the city has reached crisis levels, not because of isolated misfortunes, but because of deeply embedded systemic failures. The most glaring factor is the collapse of affordable housing. Over the past 2 decades, NYC has lost more than 1 million low-income units, and today, the vacancy rate for the lowest rent apartments is less than 0.4%. That means thousands of families are competing for a handful of spaces they can barely afford. As rents continue to rise, eviction rates have surged, pushing working-class residents out of their homes and onto the streets. Mental health support, once a lifeline for vulnerable populations, has deteriorated. Budget cuts, understaffed clinics, and long wait lists have left thousands untreated. Many individuals experiencing homelessness suffer from conditions like PTSD, bipolar disorder, or severe anxiety, yet they receive little to no care. Outreach teams try to intervene, but their resources are stretched thin. In 2024, only 3% of those removed from public spaces were successfully placed into permanent housing. Most returned to the streets within days. The shelter system, while legally mandated to provide beds, is overwhelmed and often unsafe. Many unhoused individuals avoid shelters altogether due to overcrowding, theft, and lack of privacy. Some report being assaulted or having their belongings stolen. For many, sleeping on the sidewalk or in a subway car feels safer than entering a shelter. The city's right to shelter law guarantees access, but not dignity or stability. Racial disparities are stark. Black and Hispanic New Yorkers are disproportionately affected by homelessness, reflecting decades of housing discrimination, wage inequality, and systemic neglect. These communities face higher eviction rates, fewer housing opportunities, and greater barriers to support. It's not just a coincidence. It's the result of policies that have long prioritized profit over people. Despite city officials promoting new housing initiatives, the numbers tell a different story. In 2024, only 2,063 new rental units were built that were affordable to NYC's 820,000 plus extremely low-income households. The math doesn't add up. The crisis is growing faster than the solutions. Homelessness in New York City isn't just a social issue. It's a reflection of decades of decisions that have failed the most vulnerable. And in 2025, the consequences are visible on every street corner. Survival tactics of NYC's homeless. Survival in New York City's streets isn't just about staying alive. It's about enduring a daily psychological war. In 2025, with homelessness rising and shelter systems overwhelmed, thousands of individuals rely on raw instinct, improvisation, and resilience to navigate a city that often treats them as invisible food, is scavenged from dumpsters behind restaurants and grocery stores where expiration dates and packaging mean little when hunger dominates. Clothing is often found the same way. Discarded jackets, shoes, and blankets become lifelines against the cold. Recyclables like cans and bottles are collected and sold for pennies, not just to earn money, but to maintain a sense of purpose and routine. Panhandling remains a common tactic, but it's not what most people think. Many hold handwritten signs that tell deeply personal stories: lost jobs, medical emergencies, family tragedies. These signs aren't just pleas for help, they're attempts to reclaim dignity in a world that rarely listens. Some individuals stand silently with their messages. Others engage passers-by with quiet conversation, hoping for empathy rather than pity. Shelters, while legally mandated, are often overcrowded and chaotic. Reports of theft, harassment, and lack of privacy push many to avoid them altogether. For some, the streets feel safer than the unpredictable environment inside. Long lines, strict curfews, and limited space mean that even those who want shelter may not get it. In 2024, only a fraction of those removed from public spaces were successfully placed into permanent housing. In the absence of consistent support, many turn to coping mechanisms that numb the pain, whether it's emotional, physical, or psychological. These behaviors aren't choices made lightly. They're survival responses to trauma, isolation, and relentless exposure to danger. City outreach. Teams have increased, but the scale of need far exceeds available resources. Yet even in this darkness, something remarkable happens. Informal street networks form. Groups of individuals who look out for one another, share food, protect each other's belongings, and offer emotional support. These communities, built on shared pain and mutual respect, become lifelines. They operate without structure, without funding, and without recognition, but they save lives every day. This is survival in New York City. It's not just about finding shelter or food. It's about navigating a world that's designed to forget you and finding strength in the spaces where society has turned its back. Mental health. The silent emergency on NYC's streets. In 2025, mental health has become one of the most devastating and least visible drivers of homelessness in New York City. Thousands of individuals living unsheltered suffer from untreated psychiatric conditions, ranging from severe depression and anxiety to schizophrenia and trauma-related disorders. But the city's systems are not equipped to meet the scale of this crisis. Despite a historic $650 million investment announced by Mayor Adams to support people with serious mental illness, the reality on the ground remains grim. Many individuals are discharged from hospitals with nowhere to go. They end up back on the streets, trapped in a cycle of emergency room visits, temporary shelter stays, and public space removals. Outreach teams try to intervene, but with limited beds and fragmented services, most efforts fall short. The city's new Bridge to Home initiative aims to provide transitional housing and behavioral care for those leaving hospitals. But with only 100 beds planned for launch, it barely scratches the surface of a problem affecting thousands. Meanwhile, over 20,500 units of supportive housing remain vacant due to bureaucratic delays and poor coordination between agencies. For those living on the streets, mental illness is compounded by isolation, sleep deprivation, and constant exposure to danger. Many experience hallucinations, paranoia, or emotional breakdowns in public spaces, only to be ignored, criminalized, or forcibly removed. In 2024, only 3% of individuals removed from encampments were connected to permanent housing. The city's approach has often leaned on enforcement rather than care. Increased police presence in subways and public areas has led to more involuntary removals, but not more healing. Without stable housing and integrated treatment, recovery is nearly impossible. Mental health isn't just a medical issue, it's a humanitarian emergency. And in New York City, it's unfolding in plain sight. Every person talking to themselves on a street corner, every silent figure curled up in a subway station is a reminder that the system isn't broken. It was never built to hold them. These are not just troubled individuals. They are survivors of trauma, abandonment, and systemic neglect. And until mental health care becomes accessible, coordinated, and compassionate, the crisis will continue, quietly, tragically, and relentlessly. Forgotten survivors. The elderly disabled on NYC's streets. They've lived through wars, recessions, and decades of change. But in 2025, thousands of elderly and disabled New Yorkers find themselves sleeping on sidewalks, inside shelters, or confined to wheelchairs parked beneath scaffolding. These are not just statistics. They are former teachers, veterans, city workers, and caregivers who once contributed to the very fabric of New York. Now, in the twilight of their lives, they face the harshest conditions imaginable. The city's aging population has grown dramatically. Between 2000 and 2023, the number of residents aged 65 and older increased by over 50%, making it the fastest growing demographic in NYC. Yet, services haven't kept pace. Many live on fixed incomes, with average annual Social Security payments under $16,000–$5,001, barely enough to survive in one of the most expensive cities in the world. Over 60% of elderly households are rent-burdened, meaning they spend more than 30% of their income on housing. When rent increases or medical emergencies strike, many are pushed into homelessness. Supportive housing programs exist, but demand far outweighs supply. Wheelchair-accessible units, medical care, and safe environments are luxuries most can't access. In shelters, ramps are rare, bathrooms are often inaccessible, and staff are not trained to handle complex medical needs. For those with mobility challenges, even navigating a curb or crossing a street becomes a daily battle. And without regular access to medication, many suffer silently, their conditions worsening in plain sight. Outreach workers report heartbreaking scenes, elderly individuals sleeping in wheelchairs, covered in blankets, parked beside steam vents for warmth. Some use walkers to carry their belongings. Others rely on strangers for help with basic tasks like eating or dressing. The city has increased its investment in safe haven beds and outreach teams, but the scale of the crisis remains overwhelming. Mental health challenges compound the struggle. Many elderly homeless individuals suffer from depression, dementia, or trauma, yet receive little to no psychological support. Isolation is rampant. For those with disabilities, the streets are not just cold, they're hostile. Harassment, theft, and physical danger are constant threats. One outreach worker put it bluntly, "We're watching people die slowly, right in front of us." These are not just forgotten citizens. They are survivors abandoned by the very systems they helped build. Their presence on the streets is a silent indictment of a city that prides itself on progress, yet fails to protect its most vulnerable. In 2025, their struggle is not hidden. It's happening in broad daylight. The illusion of help. New York City claims to offer shelter and support to those in need, but in 2025, the reality is far more complex and far less compassionate. The city's promises of care are often buried beneath bureaucracy, overcrowding, and selective access. Shelters are legally mandated, yet many are filled beyond capacity. For those who do manage to get a bed, the experience can be chaotic, unsafe, and deeply dehumanizing. Privacy is rare, theft is common, and the emotional toll of living in such conditions pushes many to choose the streets instead. Rehabilitation and long-term care are technically available, but not to everyone. High-end treatment centers exist, but they're reserved for those with insurance, wealth, or connections. For the average unhoused New Yorker, options are limited to short-term programs with long wait lists and strict eligibility criteria. The city's new Bridge to Home initiative, launched in early 2025, aims to provide transitional care for those leaving hospitals with serious mental health conditions. But even this program, while promising, reaches only a fraction of those in need. Outreach workers, often the first and only point of contact for people living on the streets, are stretched thin. The city has doubled its outreach staff to over 400 workers, but the scale of the crisis far exceeds their capacity. These workers face impossible caseloads, navigating complex needs with limited tools. Many report burnout, frustration, and a sense of helplessness as they try to connect people with services that are either unavailable or inaccessible. Meanwhile, the public has grown numb. Years of exposure to visible suffering have desensitized many New Yorkers. People walk past encampments, ignore pleas for help, and avoid eye contact, not out of cruelty, but out of conditioned detachment. The repetition of tragedy has dulled empathy, creating a city where suffering is normalized and compassion is optional. Help does exist, but only for those who meet the system's narrow criteria. If you're too sick, too unstable, or simply don't fit the mold, you may be turned away. The door to recovery is often locked, and the key is held by institutions that prioritize efficiency over humanity. In the end, the illusion of help is more dangerous than its absence. It creates false hope, delays real solutions, and leaves thousands trapped in a cycle of survival. New York may promise shelter, but for many, that promise remains just out of reach. New York City dazzles the world with its skyline, culture, and promise of opportunity. But beneath that brilliance lies a reality too many choose to ignore. From the collapse of affordable housing to the silent suffering of the elderly and disabled, the city's streets tell a story of survival, not success. Every cardboard shelter, every steam vent bed, every face turned away from a crowded shelter is a reminder that this crisis isn't accidental. It's the result of decades of neglect, inequality, and broken systems. The illusion of help may comfort the privileged, but for thousands living in tents, subways, and wheelchairs, it's a door that never opens. These are not just statistics. They are human beings, forgotten, overlooked, and fighting to be seen. If this documentary moved you, don't let it end here. Like this video, subscribe to GlobePath, and hit the bell icon to uncover more hidden truths from around the world. Leave a comment below. Your voice matters. And whatever you do, don't look away. Don't skip. Because awareness is the first step toward change.